Hi everybody, welcome back again for another episode of 10-Minute Drawing Techniques. Today we're going to go on and expand upon some of the things to do with silhouettes, lighting. So once again, let's just do a silhouette of, let's just do a silhouette of a ball. And I'm going to light it, assuming that the light's coming from the side. There we go. Okay, something like that. Now, thing about lighting an object is that the more an object, if you imagine that, I mean, we're always having to deal with lumps in space. Whenever an object, you'll find that an object has a surface. Every object's got a surface, right? I can draw an abstract shape like this, and I can wrap, three-dimensional lines. Remember, everything has a three-dimensional shape to it. Even the silhouettes. Silhouettes can get closer, they can get further away, you'll find. There we go, you're going to have a surface which has a, the surface curves. It curves through space. And whenever you've got light shining on something, well, light itself has a direction. So a good way to illustrate that is, let's see, I have my flashlight on me. Sweet. So when you look at this flashlight here, there we go. Let's get this object here. You'll find that whenever light shines directly on something, it's quite bright. But as this object, well, actually, let me just take the light and start going off of as your light begins to change the angle, as it starts to hit at a more of a glancing angle, it actually seems to dim down a bit. It's not as bright. This is very bright right now when it's hitting it directly. So the more a surface, maybe it's more visible with my hand. Yeah, here my hand. You see that? The more the surface starts to turn away from the light, the dimmer it's going to get. So this is a very, very simple thing. So whenever you have a curved surface, let's go back to here. You're going to have to figure out, when does the surface start to curve away? And anytime the surface curves away, that's where it's going to be dark. And there we go. So I've just lit this thing, lit this object. So every time I have to draw forms, I always start with a silhouette, a three-dimensional silhouette that takes up a certain amount of space, travels through space, and then after that I have to directly light it, and I have to figure out which direction the light is coming from. Light's got a direction, and that is anywhere the surface is pointed towards the light is going to be able to catch that light. Right? It's like rain. If you put your hand out to catch some rain, you got to make sure that your hand is facing the direction of the rain, or it won't catch it. So that's the first thing. The other thing is that light comes in many different. Light comes from light bulbs. It comes from the sky. It comes from the sun. There are many different types of light sources. The easiest ones to figure out are things like candles, or just like a little light bulb. If you have a little candle, or a little flame, it's going to emit light in all directions like that. But it only comes from a very, very small point. So if I have an object, let's say this ball, for instance, you're going to find that the light is only going to be able to reach the parts that are turned towards the light, here and here. So only from here on up is going to be lit, reachable by the light. Everything else is going to start following in a shadow. Alright. All that falls into shadow. And furthermore, if I have a ball that's back here, and this ball is actually sitting way off in the distance, then that spot is going to point towards the light. And if I have a ball, see, this ball is pretty much level with the light, but if I had a ball that was really close to us, regardless of the size on screen, it's going to have a bit of a, it's going to catch a rim light like that. So, got to be aware of your light's position and the direction at which the light is striking the surface, because the moment that the surface turns away from the light, it can no longer catch the light. Right? So hang on, if I switch to here, right? If you had rain, think of the light as rain. If the rain is falling straight down, you know you want to catch the rain by moving your surface like so. But if your surface starts to turn sideways, the rain's just gonna, right? If we turn it sideways, the rain's just gonna fall right past it. It's not gonna be able to catch the light. It's not gonna be able to catch the rain. So think of that when you're dealing with surfaces. Okay, now this only applies to this particular brush stroke, the way I handle my brush. What I've got, my current brush setup is set so that the size of the brush is always constant, no matter how much pressure I apply to my tablet. I'm using a Wacom tablet right now, a Cintiq actually, and the opacity of the brush stroke is only dependent on how much pressure I apply. So the more pressure I apply to the tablet, or to the stylus rather, the darker the stroke becomes. But the size, once I pick a size, you know, if I pick a brush like this, the size always stays the same. It doesn't get larger and smaller. This is a brush that I like to use. And the reason why I like my brush set up like this is so that if I have a silhouette like this, or if I'm just on, you know, a big chunk of black here, I can just, there we go. When I erase away, I can erase away by, if I want to light, you know, I'm going to light this object now. I'm going to apply a gradual amount of pressure and increase my pressure as the surface turns towards the surface, you know, as it turns towards the light. So this is a technique that I use. And I start my brush stroke down here, not up here. I don't paint in this direction. I don't paint my light and try and spill it over. It works the other way. You figure out where is the light, when is the last point, you know, where the light is visible? When will the light no longer be visible? And you start your stroke there and you move towards the light source. Like that. And you increase the pressure. Like that. It seems counterintuitive in that, you know, you figure the light is going the other way, that I seem to be painting against the grain of the light. But there's a lot of good reasons why I do this, is because the way the Wacom response, my tablet response is very unusual. If I can get a very, very smooth gradation and just, you know, gradually increase the pressure. But if I do it the other way, if I want to flick outwards, well, number one, there's very little gradation going on here. There's no control of the gradation. If I can apply a lot of pressure, and then I guess I can try and decrease the pressure, but it doesn't decrease pressure very smoothly. It's not easy to control. So always paint towards. You know, you can work the opposite in the opposite manner. If I had I need a bigger brush. You're gonna have to get used to constantly resizing your brush. Otherwise, if you have a tiny brush, you know, for a big job, you're gonna be there all day, you know, trying to fill in shapes. Okay, suppose for instance I had, you know, a white sphere on a black chunk of space. Then the opposite occurs. You know, I had to paint in the shadows, so I'm gonna start where the shadow's gonna begin rather than where the light's gonna begin. And I'll do the same thing. Okay, and this is a great technique for whenever you're trying to blend colors, because I can pick something like, let's say, okay, I'm gonna just deepen that. I always paint towards whatever color I'm going. If I want to make it so that this area here is lighter, for instance, I've made my black has gone too far up into the white region, I'll grab the white and I'll paint up. So you can set up Photoshop for a brush that has